The Street Crimes Division came about in 2016 when Chief Carter took office. He basically took the Narcotics Division and the resources we had in the Special Operations section and kind of combined the duties and increased manpower in the Street Crimes Division. We do a number of different things. We do narcotics investigations. We do vice type crimes such as prostitution, gambling. We also do some street level type of investigations, but most of our time is spent on narcotics, illegal firearms, and things of that nature. Mainly what we see here in San Angelo as far as quantities of illegal drugs is methamphetamine, and there is a lot. I've spent probably close to half of my career in the Narcotics Division in one job assignment or another, and we're not really any busier than we were so many years ago, but the amount of narcotics that we seize is so much more now. We are getting huge seizures for San Angelo for methamphetamine. Instead of getting grams so many years ago, now we recover ounces and pounds of methamphetamine. However, cocaine, heroin, prescription medication is still abundant here, and so we have to focus on who are the kingpins of these drug trafficking organizations, if you will, to really affect the supply that comes into this into our community. In my opinion, I mean, the border is fairly unsecure when it comes to narcotics coming into our country. Several years ago, when our government really started to regulate heavily ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, it was just cheaper to and more cost efficient and more effective to just get it from countries south of our borders, and it's just coming in droves, and more, supply and demand, and so as more people get addicted to this drug, as the epidemic grows, we just bring more and more into this community, causing our investigations to get bigger, more in-depth, more detailed, more thorough, and leading to bigger seizures. And now that we are able to, that we've built a relationship with not only our local prosecutors but federal prosecutors, we're seeing more prosecution on these larger amounts of illegal narcotics. When I went out to street crimes to take over that division, I was given the clearance to build as big of a team as we could with other resources. And I cannot be more appreciative of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Homeland Security, DPS, our state police. We have really built a great team. And as the investigations get bigger and you have more resources, we don't focus our time and our efforts on people who use narcotics. Those people need help. They need rehabilitation. They don't need to go necessarily to prison. They need help. We need to cut off the supplier, the guy or the person who's bringing in large quantities of methamphetamine or any other illegal drug. We need to focus our efforts on getting that person off the street, because that is where you're going to affect the supply in our community. But like you said, that takes time. These investigations are they're very detailed. They do take time. They take a lot of resources, they take a lot of people, they take a lot of hours, and they take a lot of evidence. Everything we do is based on probable cause. It deals with court orders of one kind or another. We have to work with our district judges, our county judges, our justice of the peace, our district attorney's office, the United States attorney's office, whatever resource we need to use for a specific investigation, but it takes time to amass enough evidence to get to the point where we can take enforcement action. At the local level as well, because we get a lot of tips from the community. We get a lot of phone calls, we get a lot of emails. And so we have to also prioritize those in the course of our business. Some people, understandably, want to remain anonymous, and that is perfectly their right. I don't discourage that, but once we get a little bit of information, we have to do a lot of investigation to find out more about what they are talking about, who they're talking about, and what all it involves. Or they send us an email, even if they give us their name, which is great, so we can corroborate some of the information that we're getting. I still, and I'm not making excuses, I wish we could work faster. I do want people to understand that I do read and see every tip, every email. I know it doesn't happen fast enough for some people, and if I had that problem next door to me, I would be frustrated as well. I have a certain number of officers that I can designate for those type of things, and it's a smaller number when you're considering policing 100,000 people in San Angelo. Not an excuse, it's just a fact that I have to prioritize what we're doing. But we do get to every tip. I'm not going to say that every single person gets a call back. I know we have failed there at times because of the bulk of tips we get. It may be 8, 10, 12, 15, sometimes a day that we're getting all this information while we're working on other cases. But there have been times where someone calls about maybe a problem house in their neighborhood. We may never get to that house, but perhaps the problem stops. And I've gotten calls that says, well, we never saw you there, but the problem stopped. And people call us and thank us, and I really do appreciate that, and my guys love that. They said, we didn't see you, but the problem stopped. Well, probably not because we went there, but because they were tied into another group of people that we were working on. And if we make an arrest on a group of people and your problem stops, then I hope that took care of the problem. But I would never discourage people from calling, keep calling, and sometimes you have to be a little bit more persistent than others. But we just have to prioritize the number of complaints that we do get. Actually, there's not. I mean, obviously, a significant number of young people are involved in either the use and or the sales, but we have arrested an 18-year-old, we have arrested a 75-year-old, for dealing narcotics. The part of town doesn't matter. It could be in North San Angelo, it could be at the country club, it could be in Santa Rita, it could be anywhere. It's so abundant, unfortunately, and it ties to property crimes, it ties to some violent crime, some assaultive type offenses, it ties to so many different areas of this community. I mean, to the way people, feel about their properties next door, down the street, whatever it might be. And so it's just infected our entire country, but I'm concerned about San Angelo, and it really has grown. And we're doing a good job. My guys are doing a great job, but it's every day. It's nonstop. I'm so proud of all the guys that work for me. I mean, I have to make them go home. I have to make them put the phone down and go home and take some time off. And It can be dangerous, but they love it. We're well trained. We have access to training, we have access to educational resources, we have access to so many great opinions from a number of different sources, and the guys are motivated. It's just, and we're having fun. Now, I don't mean to make that sound like that this is not important, but we are having a blast at our job, because we really do feel like we actually are making a difference on the amount of drugs that are in this community. It's really hard to say what is suspicious activity when it comes to selling drugs. I don't want to say that if you see these exact things, then but our community is pretty smart, and they call with very good information. I guess probably to help us out, the more detailed you can be, whether it be certain license plates of cars, whether it be names of people that you know you've seen there, the amount of traffic, the amount of people coming and going, which may not be illegal activity, but enough that I can say, if I have some information, I can link it to something we've done in the past, or we may know that person from prior involvements, or it may give me a reason to prioritize that house and say we need to do some of our investigative techniques to find out if there's something going on illegal there. The problem is that gets overwhelming at times is that there's so many of them. But I encourage people to be a good witness, and watch and write things down. And we do keep people's names anonymous. I know not everyone really is comfortable with that, giving us their names, and that's perfectly fine. But sometimes that helps if there's someone I can call back again to say, what are you seeing today? What did you see yesterday? Things of that nature. And the community has helped us a lot at times. Some citizens have taken pictures and sent them to us, or been very helpful. Some people, for obvious reasons, don't want to get involved for obvious reasons, but we have a number of different methods and techniques we can use that gets us toward taking care of the problem. The one thing I wanted to show you in those pictures is something that's becoming more and more prevalent, is that if we find narcotics, we find guns. And that's most of the time now. And it's not one gun, it's several guns. We have recovered several stolen firearms, but so many of them are not in our system. So again, if you have guns, I ask you please write your serial numbers down, keep track of that information, because we recover a lot of firearms that are in possession of people who are not allowed to have firearms, convicted felons, or they are possessing a firearm while they are selling illegal drugs, things of that nature. If you have guns, write the serial number down, because we have a lot of guns that we don't know, where they go, but they're in the hands of dangerous people. Property crime does have a connection to narcotics. If someone has a drug habit, if they are using methamphetamine on a daily basis, if they don't have the cash on hand to continue to purchase that, they may start stealing, and guns are a hot item for criminals to steal because they can trade that up for a significant amount of drugs. And this is Texas. We all have guns. There's a lot of them that are left unsecured in unlocked vehicles in your house, whatever it might be. It's just becoming more and more prevalent that people trade narcotics for guns. People steal things and they pawn it, or they trade it, or they sell it to someone else to get cash. regardless of the amount of drugs that we take off the street, is not going to change the demand for the drug. And so if we could figure out a way to come up with a strategy to say we are going to make sure we have ample resources for people who want to get away from using drugs, and we can secure our border more, and I can focus on the big drug dealers in town, the people who are bringing in huge quantities of drugs, and focus on them. If we had in some way to get enough money and resources to do all of those things, we could make a real dent, a bigger dent, in the illegal drugs in this community.